How automated can we make a cafe and still have it feel like a craft cafe? How automated can we get and not have this black box Starbucks espresso machine on the counter? This is the Mahlkonig E80W grind by Sync. Mahlkonig sent this over and asked if I wanted to do a video overview on it, and I said sure. So a couple disclaimers, just want to get those right out of the way. They said, what would make this review work? And I said, well, I'm hosting a summer latte art series with a few other local coffee roasters, and we're really trying to boost up the prize pack. So if you wanted to donate something to the series for the prize pack, that would be awesome. And they obliged. They sent over a couple X54 grinders and money to go into the prize pot. They sent over a lot of stuff. I'm not seeing any of it personally. It's just for the people who are winning the series. So super grateful that they're willing to sponsor this latte art series. Second disclaimer, we use Mahlkonig grinders in all of our cafes. So each cafe has 3 espresso grinders of varying kinds and 1 EK43. All of those we pay for with our own cash money. There's no kind of back-end deal or incentive. They're not watching this video before it goes out. I would probably do this on my own because this stuff's fun to do, but I just wanted to lay that out before we get going. So the first thing you'll notice is the package looks really similar to all the other E-style grinders, and it does borrow a few features from some other E-series grinders that are already out. So as you can see, it's got the scale built into it. You can throw the portafilter in, it'll automatically tare and dose whatever dose you program it for. You got the same burr set as the other E80 style grinders, but that's really where things start to diverge. Essentially with this Grind by Sync grinder, you've got 3 new things that make it wildly different than any of the other Mahlkonig E-series grinders. The first big change is you've got no manual adjustment collar. All of the grind adjustments are done digitally, and you get a real-time readout of the distance between the burrs in microns. So instead of moving a collar, you're using the screen to dial in your precise micron reading. The biggest benefit to this is, of course, the accuracy. Even though you've got demarcated numbers on most grinder adjustment collars, sometimes it's hard to tell how much you've actually moved the collar, especially if you're a brand new barista and you don't have the feel for how collars work, if there's any play in the collar, or if you want to move it just a little bit, but it skips, it's really frustrating. So the biggest win of programming that burr distance in there and seeing the actual micron number, the actual distance as your burrs are apart from each other, is just simply confidence in knowing when I set the adjustment, it's going to go where I want it to go. I know exactly where it is, and I don't have to second guess it. This is really useful when you can tie that micron reading to a recipe. So you can program multiple recipes into this grinder. Let's say one of them you want 19-gram dose at 200 microns. So once you have that loaded into your screen, you can still manually adjust and deviate from that recipe, but it's kind of cool when you start to move the grind around, it'll still show you where the set point is. So if you start at 200 and then you move to 210 or you move to 188, you can still see that 200 on the screen, just reminding you where home is. This allows you to play a little bit, and then if anything gets weird, you can simply scrap all of your changes and refer back to that recipe. Just go right back to that safe place. And again, this is really awesome for new baristas. Let's say your shot's going too fast, so you make an adjustment to slow it down, but maybe the shot being too fast wasn't actually because the grind setting was wrong. Maybe you had some really big channel. You might tighten up or loosen up, chasing your tail, and end up in a grind setting that's like way far away from where you need to be. So I could see having that good home base just being really empowering. The other benefit to having multiple recipes being able to be stored on a grinder is, say, in a lab setting. Maybe you're using one grinder to pull multiple coffees of varying different styles, different roast levels, and you could pre-program in a spec that'll get you close to where you need to be to eliminate some of the guesswork. So if we go from night shift, which is our dark roasted coffee, to something like the Best Friends blend, it's a much lighter roast, completely different extraction, different profile. You can simply switch through the recipes and not have to go through that, I gotta find where it is. And it might not get you 100%, but it'll get you really close and you can play from there. It always adjusts in the same way, where when you dial in whatever micron setting you want, the grinder will open up past that setting you want and then slowly walk its way back down to achieve that setting. One of the quirky things about the micron-based readout is I've noticed that when you set it for a certain number, it doesn't always hit that number dead on. So let's say I set the grinder for 200 microns, and maybe it'll hit 199, maybe it'll hit 201. And that doesn't bother me so much because a micron is so unbelievably small that even with that margin of error, it's still probably closer than what you'd be able to do by hand. I'm not sure where the breaking number is for this, but there's been a couple times when I've adjusted it to a number. It hasn't hit that number. Let's say we were trying to hit 200, but it only got to 205 and that wasn't close enough, and it started the whole process again. So I think the biggest variance I've got is maybe 1 or 2 microns at the most. So the second feature that this thing does that sets it apart from the other E-series grinders is that it has an internal zero-based calibration. So if you've ever calibrated a grinder, you know that it's not incredibly difficult, but it is, it's just kind of a pain in the butt. But the biggest quirk about calibrating grinders is that traditionally it usually involves some sort of disassembly. Something's coming apart, some screws are coming undone. And if those things don't get put back together perfectly, then you've got problems. So we've had instances where the grinder's been taken apart, everything's put back together, but the collar's not attached to the burr carrier. So baristas are making adjustments and nothing's happening and they don't know why. We're trying to spend as much time with the guest as possible, as much energy on the guest as possible, as much energy on our team as possible, as much energy engaging with the product as possible. And calibrating the grinder isn't on the top of the list of super exciting things, even though it's really important. If I could get everyone together as a business owner and say, we're gonna spend 2 hours doing one thing and we get to choose between here is an advanced expert level hospitality class versus here's how you calibrate a grinder class, I'm gonna pick hospitality and guest service every time. So essentially we're gonna run the grinder, bring the burrs closer together with this wheel until we hear them chirp just a little bit, and then back it off a teeny bit. Walking it in, walking it in, walking it in. There's that chirp right there. There's that chirp. So it started to chirp right when I got past 0. So this thing was already really well calibrated from the factory. So I didn't actually make a change, but I'm gonna go ahead and, yes, store that modified calibration. So the third thing that this grinder does, the most wild feature, is its sync feature. So this grinder can communicate with certain La Marzocco espresso machines, and you can program in a recipe and the grinder will adjust itself. So the machine knows the output of the coffee, the machine knows the timeline in which that output is happening, and then the grinder can, by communicating with the machine, adjust the grind to keep your extraction in the window that you pre-specify. Our machines aren't set up to do that yet, so I haven't actually played with this feature. I've seen it demoed at a couple live events that I've gone to, but I don't have any feedback on how it would actually work in a busy cafe. And I think this is a trend that we're gonna see more of going forward because it taps into this, this question of how automated can we make a cafe and still have it feel like a craft cafe? How automated can we get and not have this black box Starbucks espresso machine on the counter? And if you would have asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have said, why do we need automation? As baristas, this is our craft. We want to be in tune with the coffee. We want to touch everything. We want to know, we want to feel it. And in a lot of ways, I still feel that. But from the business owner's perspective, one of the big challenges we have is how do we get people trained up as quickly as possible? How do we get the quality to our guests to be as consistent as possible? You know, you see things like the puck press, you see things like the Wally or any of the other automated milk steamers. On one end, you say, hey, if you can automate these things, you get to spend more time with your guests, talking to them about coffee, doing the things that really matter. On the other end of the spectrum, you could say, hey, if people come into the game and everything's already automated, they're gonna have less pride of ownership in what they're creating. They're not gonna pay as much attention to the things that are happening when the espresso's happening. And I think both of those are valid. Like, where's the sweet spot? I don't know. I don't think anybody wants a generic black box on their counter, but we want some of the things that come with automation. The internal self-calibration tool, awesome. Not super sexy, but incredibly functional and a great thing to have. Second thing, the micron adjustment in the recipe mode. It's really empowering for a new barista, helps them feel confident to be able to explore, play around with espresso, and have this safe home base. And the sync feature, cool step forward in technology. Again, haven't actually used it, and everyone's gonna need to make their own decision on how far down the automation rabbit hole they wanna go. No matter what, you're still gonna have to build your palate. You can't program a recipe, you can't develop a recipe, and you can't really be in tune with the product that you're serving if you don't know what's affecting how it tastes. Super big shout out to Mahlkonig for sending this over, and thank you for sponsoring the Central Coast Latte Art Championship circuit that we're hosting. I'll put a link to that stuff down below so you can, follow along to our journey. But yeah, thanks for watching. As always, appreciate the energy that's coming from out there. Keep making good coffee, dude. This is awesome. Stay dialed, y'all. Peace.